you've got a bunch of people who say, yeah, sure, I will spend most of my, I'll spend my work hours, most of my waking hours working with you towards this thing. Like, I believe in you. I believe in you. That's just like, what a privilege. And so from the very beginning, as soon as that came into focus for me, I started to realize why all the podcasts I ever listened to, all the books I ever read about this stuff, like values, like company values. So we adopted 5 values: pioneering, personal growth and well-being, something called GHD, hands dirty, lead with positivity and empathy, and then community development.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Drew Amoroso, who is CEO and founder of DueCourse. Drew, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation because you are actually the first person that I'm speaking with that has a business that is related to legal and law practice. So tell everyone a little bit more about DueCourse, what you guys are all about, what you do, and who you help.
Yeah. Yes, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called DueCourse, which is a platform-enabled coaching company, and it's dedicated to helping lawyers at top law firms, primarily Am Law 200 firms, develop the sort of the mindset, techniques, the workday habits, the routines, and really the confidence and the emotional intelligence that they need to really thrive in a very demanding legal environment. A lot of stuff that just doesn't really happen during school or in the normal course of working at a firm like that. And so, unlike a lot of traditional development programs, we're platform enabled, which allows us to scale and provides opportunities for coaching, at a top law firm that has offices all over the world. We also have just launched what I think is the world's first AI coach for lawyers. And we're really anchoring everything on our platform, all the courses and all the coaching around that particular product. And so at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is give people this a way to have agency and ownership over their workday experience, and therefore be able to build a really authentic career. We just want people to feel like they have agency, and that they can help themselves in an environment like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And one of the things that always jumps at me for specifically, I guess, the legal slash the legal industry is that it is often such an and correct me if I'm wrong here, and if you don't agree, but it's often such a held back in time industry where they're so
Yeah.
used to doing it the old way. So what's especially for some of the professionals that have been doing it for decades, maybe 10, 20, 30 years, what's so important about coaching for them, even for the ones that have been doing this for as long as they've been around? What
Yeah.
makes it so special? How does it help them go through the process and increase their efficiency?
Yeah. It's a great question. So you're right. Legal is a very slow to adopt and adapt. Um,
Mhm.
It's for a number of reasons, but I think primarily, if you think about like the way a lawyer thinks, right? A lawyer is like constantly looking backward. Like if you're going to try to build a legal argument, you look for precedent, right? So what's the most solid, legal theory that has been reaffirmed like decade after decade, right? So it's like, and so an innovation in that sense is not really encouraged because you're not supposed to recreate the wheel in that way. So I think that's part of it. Also, you know, lawyers are professionally trained risk spotters, and so they see risk everywhere. And so the idea of bringing in new things and doing things differently doesn't necessarily sit well. And you're sort of taught that from law school, where you read these cases where for torts, which is where people will get sued in civil court, like cases about banana peels on the ground, right? And how people would step on a
Like
banana peel
cartoon
and like.
stuff.
Yeah, it's just, and so like you start to walk around after a while and you see a banana peel or you see some like a pothole or something, and you start to think like, wow, I wonder if someone stepped in there. So it kind of permeates your mind. But the reason why coaching is so important is the way I would differentiate it is, training is like traditional training is really focused on information exchange, right? But coaching is really about behavior change. And so what lawyers don't need more information, right? And in that environment, what's really challenging is that they have to, especially when they come in as a new lawyer, they have to recreate all of the habits, the routines and things that they have been banking on for years, right? So in other words, as a student, I don't care if you're in college or law school, high school, you develop a certain way of thinking as a student, right? You have a syllabus where it says, this is what you're supposed to do. and if you do this, you'll get this.
Yeah.
So expectations are clear. You understand what success looks like. Even though you may have a lot of things to do, you still have ownership over, for the most part, like what you do in between those blocks that you can't control, right? So
Mhm.
class or whatever. But in between, like you might have a lot of things to do. You're busy, but at least you can pick how you want to go about those times.
Yeah.
And so those are like habits, and just like literally, like when you wake up in the morning, your mind's, after years and years, 2 decades,
Mhm.
starts to think a certain way. And when you get into
Mhm.
a law firm environment, um, all that's upended, right? It's not necessarily clear what success looks like. It's not that great at
Mhm.
expectations. Law firms don't really have an org chart. So an associate
Mm.
will often work for multiple people. And so you kind of have several bosses, but no one who's your real boss.
Mm.
And it's very uncertain. And so what we're trying to do what we do through the courses that we offer, and also the one-to-one coaching, is help them to develop, a way of like approaching this,
Hmm.
like cognitive agility, or being able to switch back and forth, or just having this like baseline awareness and
Mhm.
intentionality of how you're thinking and how you're acting throughout the day. And so
Mm.
they
Sort of reframing that in a way.
reframing it, absolutely, and just
Mhm.
saying, so here's one example. So
Sure.
um you know uh, pretty much uh every coaching um, s- uh, period that we go through, where we'll take a bunch of first year lawyers, so that in the fall and like early spring, we'll have a big class of 100 that we'll take through one of our courses, and they work at a big international firm. Uh,
Mhm.
a discussion will come up that's sort of like, someone basically uh, has a has worked really hard on a memo or something. They turn it in to
Mhm.
the partner, and they've never worked with a partner, or they're still unsure about their skills. And the
Yeah.
partner writes back an email that says something like, okay, and all lowercase, like sent from my iPhone, right? And so it's a big scary partner,
Yeah.
and so the thought's like, well, what does that mean? What do I do with that? And
Mhm.
the answer is, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that you spent all week working on it, sent it to them. They wrote back, okay, sent from my iPhone, right? So
Mhm.
there's these little mindset traps that,
Hmm.
especially in like a really high stress environment, like that could
Hmm.
sit with someone and they could think that it means something. It doesn't mean anything. So we're trying to get
Mhm.
them first to think differently. We should always start with mindset, because that's the fertile ground where change
Mhm.
is really made. And then from there, once they have that, they have a bit of self-awareness and what they're thinking. And so once you have a handle on that, then you can start to look at the way you're approaching challenges in your day,
Mhm.
opportunities, reframing, like, I'm really, really busy. Okay, well, you're busy, but what do you have what's within your ability to influence within the
Mhm.
confines of, being busy?
Hmm.
So it's just so important for them, because there's no traditional org chart. They're coming from it's a very different environment, and they're coming from a place where they had, sort of stability, and that stability is gone. So they have to make those routines and habits up for
Mhm.
themselves.
That's so interesting. Do you find what do you find are the usual, like, mistakes that they're making in this trajectory that stops them from achieving the things that they think they will achieve by doing the same things that
Yeah.
they've seen, but they won't? What are some of those things that are like, they think it's the right actions, but it's not?
Yeah. I think, so the in law firms, there's the billable hour, right? And so there's
Yep.
1,700, 1,800, 1,900 hours a year, which, if you do the math, it's like, you know 38, 40 hours a week, and that's just billable work. That's not like I went to lunch for an hour with someone, right? And so
Sure.
there's a really a pressure to like do a lot of work, but because of that,
Mhm.
there's not much room for, I would say, at least two things. Number one, we call it working on your practice, which basically means they're so busy that they don't have enough time to work on the things that help them to do the work.
Mm.
So, um, coming up with like systems for things, or um, being able to like strategize, like look ahead, like do some
Yeah.
like long-term planning, because sort of it's not always the case, but in many cases, the way that those environments work, you're often on call a lot, right? And so they develop
Mm.
these bad habits where they wake up, phone in their
Yeah.
face,
Busy being busy.
phone in their face, go to bed.
Mm.
So there's not this, and it's also not culturally like, let's get together and as a team work on something. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, right? In the way
Mm.
that you would think in like corporate America, trainings and things, like, it just doesn't happen, because every minute that you're not billing, or you're doing that, you're not billing. So culturally, that's not there. The
Mhm.
second thing is they are not, they're not getting the type of professional development opportunities that allow them to see a little bit further and to like believe, like feel empowered and to believe in themselves, I think,
Mhm.
because of that culture as well. So a
Mhm.
lot of times they have a very, it ends up creating a narrow view of what's possible. And um, not only narrow, but it doesn't really, it's not encouraging, right? They
Mhm.
just like, they feel like, well, this is the world that I have to function in, and that
Mhm.
worldview is also reinforced by every person above them
Yeah.
who potentially wears, wears their journey as a badge of honor, right?
Mhm.
Like I had to sleep under my desk or whatever. That doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
That's, at least not as far, not that I have heard recently, but
Mhm.
so that's sort of like the environment continues to go on, and so they don't get a lot of the opportunities to really have like some introspection, right? And
Mm.
say, okay, I can take ownership of this thing that's bothering me, or like, it just ends up not getting
Huh.
addressed.
Yeah, that's it's so interesting to hear because it and you said the words culture as well, which is I think so crucial for so many organizations to be able to build that. But it sounds like they have had such a I'll just use the word like kind of like the dinosaur culture of here's how I've always done it, and it just
Yeah,
keeps piling on, and they don't know that it sounds like they don't know that it's a negative um situation for them to be in. So then that transition is like, okay, here's how we build the real culture to be able to achieve all the things that we're looking for.
yeah,
Which kind of jumps into the question that I'd love to ask you, which is how you view culture for your own organization. And something that I find very, very interesting, which you hear all companies talk about, is that you guys only have a 4-day work week.
that's right.
So talk
Yeah,
to me about how you see building culture and also how you found the results of implementing a 4-day work week for the company.
yeah, yeah. I will say up front that like when I was, starting this business and I had no business experience, and I worked at a big law firm for a while,
Mhm.
and then left and had my own firm for a little bit, and then started DueCourse with just, uh, I I always tell the story, but basically, when I founded the company, I filed my articles of incorporation in Delaware, and I started walking around. It's just me. I started walking around telling people in San Francisco, which is where I was living at the time, I'm the CEO of a legal tech company, and they would say, you know, cool. How many people like work there? I was like, just me. Okay. Um, but like, what do you guys do? I wasn't even really sure at the time. I was like, well, we
Yeah.
do like what, and like, well, what technology do you have? None. But that's where, that's where you start.
Yeah, of course.
And so, but the reason I bring that up is at that time, I could not have imagined how much it means to me to have a workplace where people really enjoyed it, coming to work.
Hmm.
And how much it means to me, how much like stewardship I feel over that experience for them. Because if you think about it, you know, if you've got a bunch of people who say, yeah, sure, I will spend most of my, I'll spend my work hours, most of my waking hours, um, working with you towards this thing. Like I believe in you. I believe like that's just like what a privilege.
Mhm.
And so from the very beginning, I like, as soon as that came into focus for me, I started to realize why all the podcasts I ever listened to, all the books I ever read about this stuff was like values, like,
Mm.
company values. And so we adopted 5 values, pioneering, um, personal growth and well-being, something called GHD, get hands dirty, lead with positivity and empathy, and then community building. And so if you're gonna have a company, right, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and there's also people are on their own. And if you want to if you want to empower them, you say, if something comes up, like just do what's within our values, like work within our values.
Mhm.
Um, and so the way that I was, so that's number one. Like, and then I think all roads sort of flow through there. Number
Mhm.
two, um, uh, I was taught and did not know this, but was taught later that when you're building a company, you you don't y- y- you you pick the right person for you have a seat with a job description, and you pick the right person for that. You do not build job descriptions around people because it's
Mm.
like, oh my god, this person is amazing, right? Well, we kind of don't need all that, but we do need some of this. Like, you can't do that because it messes with the calibration of the company, right?
Mhm.
So I honestly think that the most important thing that I can do as a CEO, other than make sure that the company's funded, is to make sure that the right people are in the right seats, and no one gets in the door unless you fit the culture, right?
Mhm.
To be honest with you, we don't have employment problems. If anything, everyone likes each other too much. We need some more healthy debate. But that's a product of we picked we all agreed, right, to come to this place, and
Mhm.
everyone like sort of made it through that filter.
Yeah.
Um, and then when it comes to the 4-day work week, yeah, I read all the studies around that. Um, I, you know, I, it was so clear to me that that's what you have to do. Like
Mm.
you're more efficient, people are healthier, their longevity, like more productive, right? And
Mhm.
there's this concept. Have you ever heard of the concept called Parkinson's law? You ever heard of that before?
Yes, but feel free to obviously explain it a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, it's this idea that like work expands to fill the time available for its completion, right? So I was like, hey, can you help me with this for 25 minutes? And I was like, hey, can you actually like do it in 15?
Mhm.
Like if you've ever been under the gun, like you dial in, you go faster, you
Yep.
access this deeper level of focus, and it
Mhm.
turns out not only do we move faster or more efficiently, I should say,
Mhm.
um, the work is better.
Mhm.
The
So
work is usually
you found that it actually translated into the studies, everything else translated into the results coming through the company.
yeah. So we even as a startup, I definitely subscribe to this idea that you have to move, fail fast and all those things. But, you know, I don't like I never sat well with me that you have to speed past and like give up like a lot of the, sacrifice the culture, time spent
Mm.
with one another. So what we did is we put in a bunch of like, we studied it. We were part of a study, um, uh, that like a global study. That's how we got into it. Um,
Mhm.
we have metrics that we measured. We have like, we tracked everything, and we're doing just, and wellness was part of that, employee wellness, right?
Awesome.
And we're definitely doing just as well as we were before, but I would say certainly better because it just causes you to cut the fat. Like
Mhm.
we got 4 days to do this, team, and so if we have our goals, then we've got 4 days now. Okay, we just figure out a better way to do it. It really forces you to figure out a
Mm.
better way.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, we
That's
focus on planning and other things that really just help to keep us well oiled and calibrated.
Yeah, that's great because I hadn't spoken with anyone yet that actually implemented it. I've spoken with many people that are like, "Oh yeah, this is interesting. This is cool. Sounds good," or all the theories, all the studies, and everything else. But it's great to actually hear firsthand that this is something that's been very beneficial for the company too.
Yeah, and I'll put it to you this way, like, okay, so you have 2 options, right? If you're gonna grow or you're gonna run, like, what does it take effort? Did it take effort for us to figure it out? Absolutely. But, like, which one do you want? Do you want the effort to, like, design something in your own way and, like, figure out that problem? It wasn't even a problem. It was kind of fun, like, just
Mhm.
to figure out, like, how we even everyone's excited about it. Or do you want the other set of problems, which is people are overworked or wasting time, you know, like people are not as healthy, right? We don't
Mhm.
need to be at work for 5 days. We could do it in 4, and then everyone goes home and they hang with their kids. I've got like moms and several moms, and like, and I don't, a lot of times I don't know where they are, and I don't care.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like we don't need to be together. That's not the point. So anyway, I just think that it takes effort, but which one do you want?
Uh-huh. Which yeah, what price are you willing to pay? I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Drew, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the role of AI in helping lawyers, in helping law practices, and in helping them succeed. Because as you were saying, they've often been stuck in such a outdated outdated is a
That's generous
outdated
of you. Yeah,
methodology.
nice. That's
So
kind of you. Yeah.
so yeah, what do you how do you think that applies to them and how they can implement that? You don't have to go crazy on like so many details, but yeah, I guess on a high level overview of it.
Yeah, totally. So here's the thing. So you're bringing in this like really new technology, with skeptical lawyers who also, by the way, they bill their hours, and so if something is like taking that away, right,
Yep.
and you're not billing, then that just kind of disrupts the system. That's not the associate's problem, really. I mean, it is on the ground, but um,
Mhm.
that law firms have to rethink that. But I think there's a number of ways AI can help. So I don't really, to be honest, I don't really care about the technical work. I'm more about the human part. But
Sure.
there's so many ways that it can automate that. As far as professional development goes, there's a lot of like these little. Being a lawyer is very solitary, right? You're
Hmm.
often like you're thinking a lot. You're in your head. We don't get to, like you don't get together and like strategize and stuff. Like it's very off. It's few and far between. So it's very
Mhm.
solitary. And when you have a solitary like existence like that, you know, again, you're spotting risk. It's like high pressure.
Mhm.
Like you just start to have thoughts, right? That kind of creep in. You're alone
Mhm.
often. There's not that community. And so you have a lot of questions and you have a lot of busy people who could answer these questions for you, but they're not available.
Mhm.
And so I see AI as we like to call it like it's human centered, right? So how can we like fill in some of the gaps that
Mm.
will like help people it is a little bit of coaching, but it's also some training and just a knowledge centers that will help people to get over those humps, help to
Mhm.
give them some structure in their day, right? Like I was talking about before,
Yeah.
where it's challenging for them. And it's basically like a little bit of a thought partner with you, but not really like, it's not like a person who's talking to you all day. It's really just someone who's there like, hey, like, how should I do this? Right.
Mm.
Well, what do you think I should do? And then on our platform, we actually have a way you just press a button and you can request to speak to a coach live, like a real
Mm.
coach. Um, so
Awesome.
I see it just sort of like helping like bridge a lot of the gaps that
Hmm.
um, are open because of the non-traditional, like, environment that they have to function in each day.
Mhm. I like
Yeah.
that perspective. Yeah, I totally thought, and this is just, I totally thought you were gonna go like the technical route and like efficiency and stuff, but I really like how that's, sure, that's part of it, but it's actually, there's so much more, which I actually wasn't aware of. I guess the lonely side of the, like for me looking as an outsider, I'm like, hey, lawyers, they're all working together at the firm and doing all their things, and hey, team, like, let's do it together. But it doesn't sound like that's that's it at all.
It's not.
Which,
Well,
yeah, that's
the
interesting. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
yeah, of
And
course.
I wanted to ask as well, Drew, I'm not sure what your goals are for the company. Obviously, I assume that you want to keep growing. That's number one, that's likely the usual target for most businesses. But as you're looking at the goals that you have and the things that you want to achieve and the growth that you want um, to develop over the years, what are some of the challenges that could affect or get in the way of those goals? And I'll frame it to you this way: if you had a magic wand and you could just wave this amazing wand to get rid of all of the challenge, or actually just one challenge, the main thing that stopped you from achieving all the goals, from getting more clients, from achieving the growth and growing the business, what's the one thing that you'd like to solve in the business?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you ever heard this answer, but I actually wouldn't I would like I'd like a magic wand, that sounds cool. But I wouldn't, um, I actually wouldn't take away any of the challenges that I've had, um,
Hmm.
primarily because
Yeah, sorry,
I've
and one, I'll obviously finish it. But I mean challenges right now, not challenges past lessons. But sorry, finish your. Go ahead,
oh,
finish your
yeah,
thought.
sure. I mean, okay, I'll give you one, but I'll preface it by saying, like,
Sure,
literally
go ahead.
every so if I'm, if I'm if I have a clear vision of what I want where I want the company to go, and I'm working towards that, and I have smart people around me who are advising me, and I'm not going off the rails, and I run into a problem, unless I'm doing something, like, fundamentally wrong, I probably need that problem is probably something I need to learn, right? It's
Mhm.
almost like table stakes to get to the next level. That's kinda how I
Mhm.
look at it, right? So, every time I've run into something like, uh, like billing issues or, organizing, like, bringing in more coaches or, you
Sure.
know, up like, that's that's all stuff that I have had to learn, right?
Mhm.
And then that's over, and then I feel more knowledgeable, I feel more empowered as a CEO.
Mhm.
So don't get me wrong, I don't like it, but 2 things
Yeah.
can be true at the same time. I'm going through it. I've just learned. I'm going through it, and it's like, kicking and screaming, but
Mhm.
I also know there's a part of me that also knows that I need that, and I will use
Mm.
that if I am paying attention. Um, so challenge right now, I think, um, the challenge is how to scale a company, um, and keep the balance equilibrium that we have achieved, right? So we want to grow,
Mm,
but at the same time, there's like, it's not as easy as just like adding this or that, right? There's so much other stuff on on the backside that
mhm,
the culture part, you know, people, this is a, these all people, right? So our employees I have life, everyone has life issues, right?
yeah,
So trying to keep that all on track can be a
interesting.
challenge.
Would you
Can be
say
a
that
challenge.
that's would you say that a part of that is, when you're having conversations with possible customers, is the trust building process of like, "Hey, here is why the new things that we have right now are actually applicable to you and will deliver better efficiency." Uh, would you say that I guess that education side of things or that trust building or the information to them is something that you're like, "Huh, that's kind of if we're able to just maximize that, minimize the confusion around it, that would be, that's kind of what I gauged from your answer, but I'm not sure if that's correct."
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely things that come along with scaling, internally, but also externally. And so
Yeah.
we form partnerships, right? We love because guess what? We're not perfect, and so we go through these growth periods. They go through their growth periods, but we stick. We like have agreed we want to stick together because we think that they're an awesome client and we're an awesome provider. And so
Mhm.
I think transparency with those things, like just
Mhm.
saying I've really grown very very close to my clients because I feel
Mhm.
comfortable. I want them to share with me what's going on with them, and I've started to share, like, I'm not trying to act perfect over here. That's like, who trusts someone like that, you know? So
Yeah.
actually sharing, like, what we're going through is
Mm.
endearing in many ways, and it builds trust, I think.
Hmm.
Um, this idea that, like, you need to, you know, act like everything is perfect all the time. You can work really hard and provide excellent client service and not be going through a hard moment, where you
Yeah.
share that with them.
Mhm.
Um, so I think
Awesome.
people get that part wrong, and if I was ever have a client who didn't, like, respond in that way, I I don't think it would be a good fit, and we don't have any of
Mm.
those clients, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, for sure.
so the scaling part is just it's my own thing where I wanna really do it in a way that's thoughtful and considers all um,
Awesome.
the
Very,
different
very cool.
stakeholders. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Drew, I have one final question here for you.
Yes.
Um, it's actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you are. So, are you ready for the question?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's do it.
They prefaced it with this quotations. I wish someone would have told me X. So here's the question. What is something you wish someone would have told you so that you can pass it on to others?
What do I wish someone would have told me, like,
About
earlier in
yeah,
my career
about building a business. Yeah, earlier.
about building a business?
Yeah.
Um, I learned this along the way, like, I I had this weird, like, light inside me where I knew it was gonna work out okay, even though everything around me, like, felt like it was on fire.
Yeah.
But I would I wish that someone had, really I wish that someone had told me, like, "All you need to do is just keep going. All you have to just keep
Mm,
going." Like, the people who make it, the people who build successful businesses, in my estimation, after 7 years of doing this, is you solve a problem, right? You just become someone who's like, "No, I'm not going to accept the fact that this isn't going to work. It might work differently, right? But I'm gonna keep moving forward." And
mhm,
I struggle a lot in the early years with, like, you know, am I you know, am I gonna make it? But that I was focused on everything outside my ability to influence. I have a lot of
mhm,
influence. So do all your listeners, anyone who wants to build a business. You can influence anything you want. You just have to keep going. And I
mm,
suffered a lot at the beginning, but now I'm just like, okay, we'll figure it out. And it's
yeah,
as simple as that. It's as good as done.
hmm. Consistency and persistence. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Drew, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you or maybe a little bit more about DueCourse?
Where do they head to?
Yeah, where should they go?
Yeah. So, they could go to LinkedIn is great. Uh, 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 Drew Amoroso, pretty easy to find me. DueCourse.coach is our website. I would love to connect with anyone, follow up and have a conversation with someone who's interested in. Um, one of our values is community building. And so we just love building networks. I don't care if it's outside the legal industry or not. We're all in this, rowing in the same direction.
Awesome, Drew. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you too. Thanks for having me.